Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you today with Merge Podcast, where we do life together. Today, I have a good friend of mine by the name of Jermaine Van Buren Jr., and he is a newfound friend of mine. So we met over performing at the same event. He was doing spoken word, and I was doing opera, and so we are just so excited to discuss with each other about what his life is about, what he do on a regular basis, and how he's able to infiltrate ministry into spoken word, into his daily mission. And also, he's a seminarian, so he's looking to become a pastor. So as one who is in the faith as well, I'm so excited to be able to talk with another brother that is already in seminary doing some things that some of us that are younger preachers need to be doing as well. And so I want to get some insight on what he think that we should do in this day and time. Well, Jermaine, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
It's good to be on the podcast. Yeah, so I am from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I'm born and raised in Hattiesburg, and I just grew up with my mom. And my mom and dad got divorced when I was young, but my dad played in the MLB.
Really?
Professional baseball player. Yeah, he did, man. Played for the Rockies, played for the Cubs, a host of other teams. And so I would visit him in the summer and stuff. And I grew up with my mom, and my mom always had us in church. I mean, when the church doors are open, we were in there, me and my sister. And I grew up singing, and I was always singing and taking the stage from a young age. And so I always had confidence and a stage presence, and that just kind of followed me through high school, through college. And so when I got to high school, I played sports, and I had to quit football in 9th grade because I also wanted to do speech and debate and theater.
Oh, that's what I had to do with track and music.
All three.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, I just did speech and debate and theater throughout high school, loved it. Fell in love with theater, fell in love with acting, particularly. But I've been singing all my life. And so through acting, through musical theater, I kind of saw a blend of acting and music and stage presence. And it was just wonderful. Yeah. And then I received a scholarship to attend Troy University. I was on a full ride academic and theater scholarship. And it was at that university where the Lord met me and called me into covenant relationship with him. And man. And so, I mean, I was headed to Broadway, right? I was shooting for the stars, and I was
but he
there.
Took you a different way.
He took me a different way. Yeah. He took me a different way. And so, I'll talk about my conversion for a minute. I mean, I had been involved in churches all my life, but I had never really known what it meant to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And then a part of that was I had been exposed to pornography since I was a child. And then in high school, just got involved with alcohol and marijuana and stuff like that. And all that stuff just kind of followed me into college. And so I started to become awakened to my sin and to this cycle of sin. And there was a friend of mine named Miles Webster. He came alongside me and kind of talked about the faith with me. And I got involved in a ministry called Campus Outreach Ministries and started going to their meetings. And it was around January 2018 where the Lord, man, just was like, wake up. And he woke me up, and he transferred me from the domain of darkness into the kingdom of his beloved son. And man, I've been walking with the Lord since then.
Yeah, it's been a very, going to college and seeing all the things that you can do in college, it can be a hard thing to maintain yourself in college. But I appreciate that you kept the good fight and were able to convert your life to Christ and become a believer of him, and then become a disciple for him. And so by you becoming a disciple for him, you you saw the light, like Paul say, of going into full-time ministry. And so what led you to the journey? What is the journey towards you going to seminary?
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, so like I said, I was headed to Broadway, and when I became a Christian, I took a radical step. I said, okay, I am dropping out of all shows that I'm a part of. I was cast to be in company, and I said, I can't do it. And I just took a whole year where I just didn't do any shows. And my director and everybody around me was like, what's going on? Is he okay? I was like, no, I just want to fall in love with Jesus. And then I started to get involved with Campus Outreach Ministries, but I was really wrestling throughout my time in Troy about whether or not the Lord wanted me to be an actor who was a Christian and to be in Broadway and to be in theater and just be a Christian, be a light that way, or was he calling me to shepherding? Because I've heard you're going to be a pastor all my life. And
same thing.
It seems to be like a stereotype, in the Black church, that like, if you're a young man and you're on fire for the Lord, you should go be a pastor. And I just didn't want that to be my story. I wanted to really see if the Lord was calling me and not people. And so I prayed a lot, man. And I talked to my pastor at home in Hattiesburg, and he told me to read the pastoral of 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus. And I was like, okay. So I was reading the pastoral epistles. I was talking to my church. I was a member of First Baptist Troy at the time. And I was talking to like my inner church family and asking them, hey, what do you see in me? What qualities do you see in me? Do you think I'm called to ministry? And they were just affirming different things that they saw in me, my care for people, my desire for holiness in my own life and in the life of other people. And yeah, it just kind of hit me like a Mack truck. One day I was sitting in my car after I'd had these conversations, after I had tried out different gifts in the life of the church, teaching and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, Lord, I think you're calling me into the ministry because I can't see myself doing anything else. This love for acting that I had, man, I started getting bored with acting.
Wow.
And I started to really care about shepherding other people, personal ministry with other people, leading people to a knowledge of the truth and seeing the same transformation that I had seen in my life in other people, shepherding. And I was like, and the Lord was like, well, there is a vocation. It's called shepherd. Are you in? And so I just jumped in. That was my senior year, spring of 2019. What led me to RTS Jackson was a combination of different things. One of the ministers at Campus Outreach, I was headed towards New Orleans Baptist because I loved the theology. I loved the seminary. And one of the ministers at Campus Outreach said, have you considered Reformed Theological Seminary? I said, well, I'm Reformed. but when I thought of Reformed, I just thought like 5 points of Calvin. And I was like, yeah, I affirm that. And they Reformed. Okay, so let me see what they're talking about. And yeah, I just looked on the website. My pastor now, Reverend Elbert McGowan, his video was on the website. And I was like, okay, black guy, black pastor, and that's a plus. And yeah, just a combination of coming to see the campus. I didn't do a visit, but coming to see the campus online and talking to different people that have been there, connecting with my admissions counselor, being able to receive the African American Leadership Scholarship, it being in my home state, like it just, and I had already had a longing to be back to Mississippi. It was just a no-brainer. Like God is leading me towards RTS Jackson through the seminary being here, but also God was leading me towards multi-ethnic ministry in my own personal life. And so to see to see that Redeemer was already trying to do that in Jackson, I was like, oh, this is no brainer. God has gone before me.
So who has been your most professional mentor, most important professional mentor right now in your life or in the past while you were in college? Who were some of your most important professional mentors that you had that helped you with speech and also help you with where you're going now in ministry? I know you talked about Reverend McGowan, so I know you have some things to say about him as well.
Yeah, I would say, as far as honing speaking gifts, definitely Suzanne Allman and Shane Cole. Suzanne was my theater director and Shane Cole was my speech and debate coach. And they just helped me hone already existing speaking gifts into how to communicate, how to present, and how to be with people. Really love them. Those were in high school. And in college, yeah, I would say, man, Bart Culpepper, who was my worship pastor, Alan Bell, who was a minister in the church, they kind of just took me under their wing and were father and uncling me and calling out things in me, having me over for dinner, presented me with many gifts. It was, yeah, so they just took me under the wing and were discipling me. Aaron Walker and Joey Carter were two staff members of Campus Outreach Ministries, and they were mentoring me as well, showing me how to walk out the faith and share my faith with other people around. And Miles Webster was a friend of mine. He wasn't really directly discipling me, but I was able to I was influenced by him indirectly, just being his roommate, being his friend, seeing him kind of have the same gift set and the same ethnicity and just doing life as a Christian in this world in the same season of life. And so, yeah, and since I've been in Jackson, my most important professional mentors would have to be Brian Galt, who's a pastor at the church, Zach Owens, pastor at the church, and then just two other guys, I call him two, but his name is Lemuel Combs, but two Combs and Maurice Henderson. And those guys have just kind of helped me prepare my character for ministry. Because it's one thing to prepare good sermons and to prepare, good visits with people, make sure you're hitting the right points. But those men have helped to develop my character and the importance of developing character as a minister. And then with Reverend Elbert, Pastor L, yeah, it's just been cool to sit under his teaching of the word. He is, man, probably one of the most gifted expositors of the word that I've heard, because his illustrations are so on point. And the way he is able to display the passage, it's almost like I'm seeing the word as I'm listening to him. But then also he is a great pastor, right? He's a great shepherd. So he makes time for people and is caring for people. It could be, in the counseling room or in the parking lot, wherever it is, Pastor L makes time for people. And so, and the last thing I say, that I've learned from Pastor L is like how important it is to rest as a minister, right? Because when I came first time I came to Redeemer, Brian Galt was preaching. I was like, I thought Pastor L was the pastor. Where is he? And the more I've been at Redeemer, I've noticed that rest is so much a part of the way they think about ministry, to the point that where Pastor L doesn't preach 52 times a year. Right? There's breaks. Exactly. Because pastors need rest too. And so that's a paradigm shift in me. So yeah.
So what I want to go back to what you talked about just a few minutes ago about character. So talking to young preacher, what does character in ministry look like to you, and how can you help some other young preachers who need this type of information? Because I have seen, and I think I've been in ministry longer than you. So I have seen when I've gone to different locations to speak or to go forward in ministry, is that younger preachers that are around our age are maybe younger than us do not have good character. So they don't have good connection with the seasoned ministers and those who really care about the structure of the church, because I know we're always on trying to bring the cutting edge, but how do we remain in character even when we see that there's a pulling for us to promote change and to push towards the grind of what we see as church religion? So yeah.
Right. Man, that's a big question. I think I'm going to give some insights from my own journey, and then maybe that'll help answer the question. When I came to Jackson, I was ready to start ministry, right? And I was ready to get into the throes of ministry. And I interviewed to be a pastoral intern at Redeemer, and I told them my story, right? I told them my history. And I didn't shy away from any of the dark things in my life. And they received that well. And what they did was they didn't hire me as a pastoral intern. They hired me as a ministry assistant. And the goal was we want to see you healthy. We want to pour into you. We want to see you moving towards sobriety from pornography addiction.
Right.
We want to see you moving towards being a healthy church member. We want to see you like holistically developed before you do anything public. And keep in mind, I'm not a pastor, right? I'm a pastoral intern. But they, on the front end, wanted to pour into me rather than set me out.
Right.
And so the first year I was here, I was in the background and I wasn't singing, I wasn't teaching, I wasn't doing anything like that. And that was hard. It was hard. But that trial, that seasonal period was so influential for the development of my character, because I learned what it meant to really serve. I thought that serving just meant speaking and teaching out, but I really learned what it meant to serve, and to serve where the church needed, right? We need ushers, okay? I always thought that was somebody else's job, but
you had to do it.
We need ushers. We need people in the nursery. Exactly. And I got to do it because that was where I was. That's where the Lord had me. And so I spent a lot of time, crying in my closet, singing and leading concerts to people, to Jesus in my closet, because I knew where I wanted to be and I knew where he had me. And it was so, and so I guess what I'll say from what I've seen from the scriptures and what I've seen from people's lives is that, man, trials and tribulation, these churchy words, right? Trials and tribulations and hardship forms character. But I maybe young people try to avoid the trial and avoid the tribulation by starting off strong and trying to be cutting edge. I would say from my own life that I have been more shaped by that year. And I've had more people in ministry tell me, I wish I had that, to develop and to deepen character before they got out. And so, yeah, if I was giving advice to a young preacher or a young guy in seminary about character, I would say, study the pastoral epistles. Paul is not calling Timothy and Titus to select any man. He's calling to select a man that's above reproach.
There you go.
Right? He's calling to select a man that's self-controlled. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people think it means any man can preach. No.
You have to be disciplined. You got to be disciplined. Exactly.
And so that's what I've heard from people, and that's what I've seen in the Word, and just look personal from my life.
Well, I know that you are in seminary, but and I was going to decide to go down that track, but then God led me into education. But He may lead me back to seminary and singing at a Reformed church is always something new, because they're always questioning you. Will you become Reformed? Right. And I'm telling them, I'm a Pentecostal brother. So being with you all makes me Reformed. So, but I have a significant mentor, Dr. Bill Wyman, who is the choir director of First Prayers. And he is always on me about remaining disciplined and remaining in character. And he came to my ordination in my denomination. He came to my ordination, and he invested into me. The choir invested into my ministry with Reformed material. They gave me like books of things, and they gave you a stack. They gave me a stack of stuff. But guess what? I have been been digesting that information on the kingdom and all those different things, because that's what I believe that we have to continually talk about, is how are we going to advance the kingdom? Right. Many of us are pushing people towards heaven, but not helping them while they're on the earth to know what to do in their natural form on the earth. So but
and hold on, let me say this, man. I have appreciated your fellowship and the fellowship of Pentecostals around me, because I have felt more encouraged to ask the Holy Spirit and interact with the Holy Spirit as I've been around Pentecostals and people like you. Like, I've been so encouraged by our relationship.
We have discussions at brunch on Sundays, and they came to my ordination. Some of the brothers at First Prayers came to my ordination. And so when we got back to First Prayers, they asked, because we got to, what we call hoopology, the high praise,
Okay.
the high exhortation that we call it. And so they were asking, well, what was that? Because I felt something, you know. So I was like, well,
they felt something.
You know, that's just a part of the Black church. You just got a taste of how we praise God in our formation, you know, of life.
Right.
And so it's always been an encouragement. But I want to talk about now, because I saw you do something when we were performing. Brother, you are powerful with spoken word. And so I want to talk about how are you infusing ministry and spoken word together? Because you have a powerful way in doing it, and not many people can do that, you know. So
yeah. I appreciate that. Yes. So I believe that poetry and spoken word is the purest form of my speech. And I've been writing since I was in middle school. And the way that I came to Christ was really, some of the first things I started to change was I had poems that were written about, trying to get women and stuff like that. And I just started to change them and say, oh, I could actually rework this. And so since my spiritual origin, like spoken word has been a part of it's just a passion of mine. And then when it comes to spoken word, I love the art of spoken word. And I've gotten this a lot of times. Well, Jermaine, what is spoken word? And it was a definition that I read somewhere that I think has been true, is that spoken word, in difference from poetry, is that it's poetry, but it is written in a sort of percussive, musical bent to where you can kind of hear a beat. You can kind of hear a rhythm as you listen to it. And so the way I thought about poetry is really as an actor. It's like I want to tell stories. And I'm also a musician. So it's like through spoken word, I'm able to tell a story with a rhythm and play with the audience's imagination. But then I can also affect them towards Christ by sharing different elements of the Christian life or different points of critique for the Christianity in the world. I have a piece that I love. I was able to do on Juneteenth in Troy that talks about slavery, right? But the way that I was able to craft the piece was in a way that it was taking a scrutinizing look at American chattel slavery, but also an investigative look at slavery to God. Because the scriptures in Romans talk about being a slave to righteousness, being a slave to God. And so that word has a sort of double meaning. And so that's kind of what I love to do is using metaphor, onomatopoeia, double entendre, similes, points of irony in spoken word. And I'm not able to do in preaching, not able to do in pastoral visits, but like I'm able to do it in spoken word. And that kind of evokes people in a different way. And so, in ministry, I think if the Lord continues to use it now, I'm sure he'll continue to use it in the future. I believe that spoken word will be a part of my ministry. It will be a part of the way I engage with people. And I've loved it so far. So
one of my favorite pieces of yours was what you performed at the event, the last one with the Childish Gambino music. And I was like, this brother right here is something. We got to connect.
Yeah.
I have another question for you. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, somebody you've read or somebody that you've studied in seminary, who would you choose and why?
Man, that's a great question. Yes. So my favorite playwright is August Wilson.
Yes.
I would go back in time to before he died. And man, we just have to chop it up with that brother. We probably had to have coffee and some biscuits, to be honest, to talk. Because so the thing I love about August Wilson is, like I told you, I love language. He has this cycle of plays. It's called the Century Cycle. And I just want to pick his brain about how did he write that cycle. It is a series of 10 plays, and they are each chronologuing one decade of African American experience.
Wow.
in America. And so, you know, one decade is the 10s, the 20s, the 30s. He's just going down the line. And that's where you get the play fences from. That's where you get Ma Rainey's Black Bottom from. That's where you get piano lesson. And so, that's where I would love to sit and talk with him and talk about his writing process, because the way he interacts with language, it's so black.
Yes, very.
Right? Yeah, and you can tell when somebody that's not black is writing something for black audiences, because it just feels so clunky. We use language differently. And so, yes, I would love to sit with him and pick his brain about what was that process like, and also just to pick his brain because he was not college educated. He dropped out of education and was educated through his local library because he had to take care of his family. And so, I just want to talk through like what was that process like in the library, learning words, learning reading, learning the classics and stuff like that. I would love, and of course, because I'm a minister, I'd have to talk to him about the faith. I'd have to talk to him about God, because he mentions God often. His plays are so spiritual in that regard. He's interacting with, not only is he interacting with African religions in the text, but he's also interacting with the African American experience in America. We are, the most church demographic. So he's interacting with that as well throughout his plays. That's who I would reach out to.
Wow. I have to go do some research on him, because then we can do deeper conversation. But I have seen some of those plays, and they are powerful. They are powerful.
Yeah,
I didn't know that story about that he did not finish college. I did not know that. But that's...
it's either college or high school.
But that's powerful, because somebody went to the library, obtained books. There's power in the library now. There's power in the library. That can preach right there. But he went to the library and was able to obtain these particular books to become one of the greatest writers in playwriting. And so that's a significant part of history that I believe that we need to bring to the light in our generation. And so, me and my brother right here are going to be doing some things in the near future that I believe that's going to blow your minds, because we got some things to talk about after we get off of here. But I'm just so excited to be able to discuss with my brother Jermaine Van Buren Jr., who is a seminarian and a spoken word genius. And so today we're about to sign off this podcast, but I want to ask him one more thing. What does merge mean to you? This is the Merge Podcast, and I want to know, what does merge mean to you?
Wow. What does merge mean to me? For me, merge means there was a pastor in Huntsville. He said this. He said, orthopraxy must always follow orthodoxy. Right. And from what I've seen I'm trying to decide if I'm going to say how I'm going to say this. Yeah, I think, it's one thing. I think it's a temptation in seminary to be so caked up on theology and to be so caked up on the theological points of argumentation and knowing how to work your way around the theological argument. But it's another thing to connect that theology to the way you practice your life. And so that's what I would say is that for me, in my experience and in my life, when I hear the word merge, I hear, how can I merge the theological mind that I'm developing to the actual life that I'm living? Right. People would say, it's not enough to know. You need to know to do. Right. Faith without works is dead. Right. So I believe that merge to me means connecting what I'm learning about Jesus, what I'm learning about the church, what I'm learning about the spiritual nature of this life, and connecting it to, man, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to interact with people at my work? How am I going to live in a life worthy in a manner, live in a life worthy of the gospel, right? How am I going to work at my salvation in my own life? And so that's what I think about when I think about merge.
Awesome. I have enjoyed this conversation with you, my brother, and I think I'm going to bring you on again after you finish seminary to see how you feel.
Oh, man.
After you finish seminary. I don't know if you know Jamie. He works at First Press. Yeah. Yep. He says it's a different feeling when you finish.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring you back, and
That's
we're going to talk again. And I believe that we have helped some young preachers and some young people that are considering going into seminary, that are seeking to really know what does it take and what are the steps that I need to do to be able to merge what I have in my heart with what I believe. And so that's important. Thank you, my brother, and I'll see you and talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.